And now for something completely different. This oddball project, christened 22 for Silicon Alone, led by Alexis Frimmer, is almost hard to define. Musically speaking, that is. It has a very pronounced experimental edge and basically makes us expect the unexpected. However, it is not something experimental without practical results. Musically challenging, yes, but getting it right on target most of the time. Although we admit, it is not a work that we will have any intention of listening many times in the future, it still causes a good sensation, mainly by the way they use instruments such as clarinet, violin and saxophone.
Danama might be a band that goes easily unnoticed by fans of heavy music. However, there is something very special here, even if it may appeal only to fans of rather melodic things. There is a modern tone without exactly going through any fashions that are dominating the attention. Yet we also have a feeling that reminds us of alternative music from the 90s, when alternative was approaching pop. The mix works particularly well, and this is a good project for those who like good surprises.
Quite an interesting album by Found Missing, even though its premise is not particularly interesting. That is, a cross between alternative rock, metal and nu metal. Which takes us back to 2 decades ago when this kind of sound was extremely popular and with all the hate generated for those who already liked heavy music. Looking back, there were several proposals worthy of our attention, as well as this Blind Leading the Blind is a good alternative album. Good songs, an excellent voice, with enough charisma to captivate us, and an album we will gladly return to.
I haven't talked about the myth of the third album in a while, but it seems that Enchantya has forced me to mention it again. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, there is a myth that the third album of a band's or artist's career is the one that will definitely mark their entire career, the one that will be an iconic milestone of it. Obviously we have no way of futurology, but listening to Cerberus, it was impossible not to think of this as their best and most accomplished moment. An album where Ruth Feverero's band both loosens its grip on commonplaces and embraces them in a more mature way. Far from being just another symphonic and gothic metal band, Enchantya assumes a true personality of its own thanks to themes that come immediately into the band and a performance by the frontwoman that is impressive, being much more at ease in her clean register and without having to resort to the operatic or guttural register. An album that simply begs for more listening and that we can't and won't deny.
After their debut in 2021, Sweden's Seventh Crystal are back with their second album, aiming to captivate all those who like melodic hard rock. It is a collection of songs that, like many others from Frontiers, are very sweet to our ears and transport us to the mythical 80s. Well-constructed melodies and songs, even though they may not make our blood boil or stand out from what the style has been presenting, largely because of Frontiers itself.
Another debut album presented by Frontiers Music, which is a reference in melodic rock and hard rock. This time it is the Finnish band Transworld Identity that has Mila Bosa as leader, who has an excellent voice that is the highlight of these very melodic songs and who has surrounded herself with excellent musicians, experienced and who have passed through bands like Hanoi Rocks, Popeda, Baby Green and Technical Justice. As we also expected, the reference to the 80s and the hard rock that did wonders 4 decades ago, but with a modern production. Perhaps it is hard for this kind of sound to have the impact it had decades ago, but still, nostalgic fans have here another excellent band.
Excellent debut album from this Portuguese synth rock project. We had already got in touch with this project through the reaction video of the song The Doomsday Clock, and the expectations were high for what this infamy was going to present. Expectations met where we have the influences mentioned in the press release from bands like Tangerine Dream and Early Vangelis, among many others, making perfect sense. All that feeling of the 80s and all that mystique result in an album that is recommended to both lovers of vintage electronic music and also to fans of progressive rock or even ambient music. To be listened to in a row and with a concept around the creation of the atomic bomb and its use, something that has special impact in the last track, The War is Over, where the cheerful melody of the beginning soon gives way to something very sinister and full of uncertainty. An album thoroughly recommended.
After a 10-year hiatus, Gesso could not come back in a better way. And this is a band that immediately assumes the difference with the past but has no intention of completely transmuting its personality. Never the Skies Will Become Places is a breath of fresh air, even if it's a breath too brief for what we wanted, but that's a non-issue when you have an album as solid as this one. To the usual stoner doom metal is added here a very psychedelic and even, why not say, progressive rib that make these 30 minutes precious and urgent to discover. An excellent surprise and an excellent comeback.